Stern Basher is here yet again. I knew it was going to happen because I can read his mind. At least that's what he claims. We'll
Well, you
see.
can't keep me away, Randy. It's Thursday, so it's time for your dose of me again.
You've set your clock by this.
Pretty much. Yeah.
All right. Well, Cern, what is exciting for you right now? Are there things that are just making you so happy? I'm ecstatic. I can't help myself, but I'm not sure if you're as enthusiastic about all the things happening in your world as I am.
Randy, I have found a image that encapsulates your excitement and my excitement in one image.
Okay.
All right, here
Good
it is.
deal. All right.
Here it is. It's a new dawn in Washington, D.C. The Cybertruck has arrived.
It is a new dawn. There you go. All right. They need to really, replace the presidential limousine with one of these.
Well, yes, and of course, Secret Service vehicles, everything.
Yes, everything. Yeah,
Yeah,
absolutely. I can't imagine why this wouldn't be, the number one vehicle for police departments across the country.
it will be.
Yeah.
Yeah, in time.
Yeah.
Yep. Yep. So I thought that was a pretty good image for, what's happened. But I've also come to understand that the Cybertruck has been around since long before you and I realize.
Oh.
This picture was found in the National Archives. The founding fathers apparently recognized
Apparently.
had
Yes.
the Cybertruck. Yeah.
Do you suppose aliens put it there?
I don't know. I just think that they were pretty smart people.
Yeah, yeah.
And they developed this, and Elon must have come across the plans and just recreated it.
Well, I think I've been to the Franklin Museum a couple of times, and they don't have one there. They need to resort things.
Mm.
Yeah.
Yep, yep. Thanks to Grok, we can imagine things from the future into the past. It's
Yeah.
great. Speaking of the future, this is actually a real thing in Texas.
Yeah.
This is the Cybertruck. They're calling it the birth tunnel,
Right. The birth, the birthing tunnel.
the birthing tunnel, and it's I think quite spectacular. And here it is in operation now.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
This is from a video from 𝐂𝐦𝐚𝐢𝐥.
Little
I think
little
in the little
baby,
video he had, there were 4 or 5 Cybertrucks that came out of the tunnel.
yeah, little baby Cybertrucks coming out of the birthing tunnel. Yeah.
Yeah. So this is quite neat because I think this is also the future of the autonomous Cybertruck. It has no windows and no mirrors,
Oh, oh, I
front
see.
or back,
Uh,
side. So I think this is a sign of things to come.
yes, yes,
You can save a lot of money if you don't have to worry about glass.
it's true.
Yeah, and it may have no wheels if it just hovers. Uh,
And I saw, was it Elon or somebody posted that in the future your Cybertruck will take itself to the service center.
well, Randy, you're getting ahead of me again. Unbelievable. We are going to have to keep track of the number of
Oh, I
times this
guess so.
happens.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
But first of all, before we get there, speaking of the future, this is from my friend Lewis, and his wife Pamela here is behind the wheel of their Cybertruck. And Lewis has now posted a couple of videos. This one was about 5 minutes long. There's another one yesterday, about 19 minutes, I believe,
Huh.
of their adventures in Cybertruck and FSD. And if you have anybody in your family that's a little bit older that has a fear of technology or FSD, have them watch these videos. Um, it's great. It's great stuff. And in this particular one, Lewis asked Pamela, he says, "So, Pamela, there are a lot of very expensive vehicles in the world. What vehicle would you trade this truck for?" And her response, "You could not give me any vehicle, and I mean nothing, and take my truck. No way, no thank you." Okay.
Yep.
So Cybertruck is for everybody.
Yep.
Anyway, this was great, and shout out to Lewis. Keep up the good work. All right, Randy. So here's what you were referring to. Hallmark's catalog said, my Cybertruck drove itself to the Tesla West Covina to get wrapped with zero interventions on FSD 13.2.4. And the Cybertruck account said,
Oh,
sometime in the near future, independent Cybertrucks can attend their appointments alone.
right. Yeah, in the when I was first making the decision to buy a Model Y, my wife and I, for her actually, and we were deciding also whether to spend, I think at the time, $8,000 for the full self-driving. My whole view, my vision, because I work out of the house and she drives 6 miles to campus, or she's a university professor. She, drives that 6 miles and then the car just sits there for 5, 6, 7 hours. So I had this thought that she would drive down to campus and she would just send the car home.
Yeah.
And then I would have it for the rest of the day. I mean, it just makes total sense to me.
Send the car home or have the car go out and make some money.
There you go. That was another alternative. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So I'm looking forward to this day. And it says sometime in the near future. Randy, what's your definition of the near future?
The near future for somebody my age, this
Well,
afternoon. This afternoon.
okay. All right. There you go. So Randy, according to Randy, this is coming this afternoon. Yeah. It might be in 2 weeks, maybe, huh?
Yeah, 2 weeks, I'm sure.
Yeah. All right. This is kind of the image of the week, I think, right?
Huh, yes, yes.
Is that a steering wheel?
So I've heard people claim, I think even Joe Tegmeyer says he doesn't think it's a steering wheel. So
Thinks it's a shadow, huh?
some kind of a shadow. That's what he thinks.
Yeah.
And if it is a steering wheel, I don't think it tells us anything.
Yeah, it could be a steering wheel and they could just use it for testing it, make it easier to do certain things with the vehicle.
I mean, these are hand built. It's not like they would have to change the line over.
Yeah. 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 Now, AJ put out a kind of interesting video where he's sort of saying this would be really smart if this actually was the compact vehicle, right? And also from a data gathering perspective, put out these vehicles in the world, have people buy them, and then it makes it easier for data gathering for the robotaxi network if you have a vehicle that's exactly the same form factor
Yeah,
as the vehicle that you're going to use.
yeah, that's true. Mhm.
So interesting. We'll see what comes of that.
Yeah. So it just did put in my mind an idea that everybody loves, when I say everybody, the vast majority of the people commenting love the look, the exterior look of the CyberCab. So then they make this assumption that the only way to have a CyberCab look would be as a two-seater like it is and just throw in a steering wheel and pedals. But it could be that it would be a CyberCab look, very, very similar to this look, and it would be four-seater and kind of normal on the inside. So
Yeah.
could happen.
My whole thing with, the new vehicles that are coming out, it seems to me like we would have seen them by now if they were coming out.
Ah,
And so maybe we are seeing them by now.
yeah, maybe we are. That's right.
So we'll see. We'll see. All right. This next few slides is a public service announcement to any Tesla owners out there.
Okay.
As you may or may not know, your vehicle is equipped with a HEPA filter, which in the bioweapon defense mode can keep out smoke and other potential toxins. And so, particularly if you find yourself in a fire
Hmm.
or near a fire where there's a lot of smoke, this is a video I think from Tesla from I think a year ago. They reposted it recently, and they show a test. And so they've got two vehicles inside the dome. You can barely see them there on the bottom panel. There's a Tesla and a non-Tesla vehicle. And there's a guy sitting in the Tesla, and you're getting to see what he sees inside as the dome fills up with the smoke.
Hmm.
And the Tesla remains smoke-free, and the other vehicle in the bottom panel fills up with the smoke.
Right, right, right. Mhm.
So anybody with any kind of medical condition that's sensitive to smoke and air quality, having a Tesla with a HEPA filter is pretty nice. And there's the dome completely filled, and the guy inside the Tesla is breathing normal air.
Yeah. Yeah,
So that's pretty nice.
indeed.
All right. This is a bad transition, but speaking of the color red, we have this table which is mostly green, but there's a little bit of red every now and then.
Okay.
And this is the asset class chart where we now got a new column for 2025.
Okay.
And lo and behold, look who's at the top of the chart again.
Oh, Bitcoin. Oh, that.
Yeah.
I,
So as
I
of
thought, I noticed asset class was at the very top of the chart. So,
yes, that's correct. Yeah. Just below that, Randy.
just below that. Okay.
Yeah. Anyway, the more things, what's the saying? The more things change, the more they stay the same.
Yeah. Yeah.
But overall, a pretty solid year for all asset classes, again, except for bonds.
Yeah. Sheesh.
So, so far, a bit of a repeat of last year.
Yeah.
But we're only 23 days in, so the year is still young.
Well, the president of the United States today was trying to beat the price of bonds down, or the yields down. Didn't work.
No,
No.
that's not going to work, but certainly cutting government spending will go a long way.
Yes, I think so.
Yeah. And certainly if that works, driving inflation down will be a big help. All right. This was kind of interesting. This is from Charlie at Creative Planning. And this is a chart that shows the weight of the US stock market versus other markets in the world. But he broke out the US stock market into two pieces, the X Magnificent Seven and the Mag 7. So the whole market, excluding seven US stocks, is 46% of the world global all cap index. And the top seven companies are about 18.5% of the
Mm.
global market.
Wow.
Just seven companies.
Yeah.
But it gets even more amazing than that. If you look at individual companies, the only global stock market that is worth more than Apple, Nvidia, and Microsoft is Japan.
Wow.
Those three companies are larger in market cap than the entire market in the UK, China, and Canada. And Amazon and Google are the same size as the entire stock market of India. And not far behind that is Taiwan, France, Switzerland, Germany, Australia. And then you've got Meta and Tesla, which is larger than the entire stock market of South Korea, Netherlands, etc. So it's pretty amazing that we've got these, in this case, these seven big companies that are larger than most country stock markets.
Yeah. Anybody who thinks that China is going to be an actual economic powerhouse by comparison, anytime in maybe the lifetimes of anybody even living today, is probably wrong.
Yeah, and again, Randy, you're anticipating a chart. Remarkable.
I
You
don't know
really
how.
have a talent for this.
I guess or we just think alike.
Yeah, and by the way, for the viewers, Randy has not seen these slides before.
Oh,
All right. Before we get there, though, again, you're not quite in sync. You're a couple
all
of
right.
charts ahead of me.
All right.
All right. So this is kind of interesting because a lot of people, this is hard for them to fathom that Microsoft is worth more than the entire stock market in the UK or China,
Right.
right? And this kind of correlates to, I think, what we're seeing on this chart. That when you look at the components of, in this case, the S&P 500, the market value of the S&P, and you break it out into intangible assets, right? Plant, property, and equipment, and the value of that versus intangible assets. Since 1975, the intangible asset percentage as a percent of the total market value has gone from about 17% up to about 90%.
Wow.
That's as of 2020. It's probably even higher than that now. So more and more of what is valuable in the stock market is not the physical thing.
Hmm.
And of course, that's pretty obvious to us, right? When we use Google, right? I mean, they have data centers and so on,
Right.
but everything that they do is digital,
Right.
and it's increasingly so for, many companies.
Hmm.
Okay, so it's not so crazy when you think about where the value is being created. It's not in the physical world,
Hmm.
right? It's intangible. And then some complexity, of course, in terms of accounting and goodwill and that kind of thing. It's all in here. But just
Sure.
the main point is that the companies that are creating the true value in the world aren't doing it with physical goods
Hmm. Hmm.
as much. Maybe with the exception of Tesla, although that too is about to change
Yeah.
with
Yeah.
them. All right. Here's a more typical transition for us, Randy. We've got a little cartoon. Um, Uncle Sam says, flip flop. And the gentleman on the right says, you mean TikTok? And Uncle Sam says, that's what I said. Um, I thought that was
Yeah.
timely.
Yeah. Yeah.
All right. Back to your comment about China.
Yeah.
This is a chart that shows China's GDP as a percentage of US GDP.
Hmm.
And you can see since before the year 2000, I guess 1998, that back then it was about 10% of US GDP.
Hmm.
And it's been rising over time. Up to 2015, it had reached about 60% of US GDP.
Hmm.
And the forecast at that point was that by the year 2024,
Hmm.
it would match
Hmm.
US GDP. Well, that didn't happen.
Right.
And then the forecast in 2019 was it would happen in maybe 2031.
Aha.
Well, we'll see that, we're not there yet. But now the forecast has been taken even lower
Aha.
in the 2024. And on this chart, it's showing that it won't reach the size of the US economy anytime soon.
Right.
Now, that too could be wrong, and maybe we're underestimating China at this point, or perhaps not.
Well, 2 weeks ago, I would have given you a different answer than I give you now.
What's changed?
Energy.
You know,
I think, you and I may have talked about it before. Certainly, a lot of people are talking about it right now is, energy is the single most important component of any GDP growth. If you have enough energy, you can make stuff, or you can move electrons in ways that produce information or what the information can give you. So, a week, 3 weeks ago, I think there was reasonable evidence that the Biden administration kind of got maybe a little bit that we needed a lot more energy, but they were more concentrating on cleaner, sustainable energy as opposed to just energy.
yeah,
Now, with the change in government and with Trump exposing that he's going to do what he said he was going to do, we not only have a change in terms of, drill baby drill, getting to natural gas and oil, but simultaneously, and maybe not having anything to do with Trump, we've had this, I would say, in the last 8 weeks, in my opinion, just watching all of these different thought leaders, we've had a flip on nuclear. I,
hmm
I, I want to say that 2 months ago, nobody thought nuclear was going to be a thing until 2030. And now I would say nuclear is going to be as fast as it can be done.
yeah. And the question is, how quickly can it be done?
Brian Wang is a total expert in this category. This is something he spends goes to the conferences, meets with the owners of the companies that produce the nuclear. And there's quite a number of companies in the show that we did. We showed quite a number of companies that are basically ready to go if regulatory agencies get out of the way.
Yep. No, in order for AI to meet its potential, we need a massive amount of energy.
Yeah.
The good news is for the United States, we are blessed with an abundance of energy in many ways.
Yep.
And I think China largely is as well.
Well, they have no real oil capability or coal. They import their oil and their
Yeah.
coal, which is why they've had to go to solar and nuclear. So this has allowed them to get a real nice, let's just say a good runway.
Yeah.
Uh, they are ahead. I think they make 85% of the solar panels or something like that. And they're putting up a nuclear plant a month, maybe one a month, something like that. So they're ahead in those two categories. I think the United States is going to catch them and pass them on nuclear, just because our technology is better. Solar, no, we probably won't catch them and pass them on solar, but maybe we can at least be a player.
Yeah. And China, from a hydro perspective as well, has done some pretty amazing things there, maybe to the detriment of the environment and so on. But If we're just talking energy, that's also another
Right.
big part of their
Yep.
portfolio.
Mhm.
Yep. Yep. And then speaking of China, there's always reason to be deeply skeptical of any data. And this is an older cartoon now. Um, and the Chinese guy on the left there is, politicians not happy. And the response from the military leader, I guess who's in charge of these numbers, says, "But comrade, those are the made-up numbers,"
Yeah.
as the chart is showing the Chinese economy going south.
Right, right, right.
Yeah.
If we believe the numbers, though, I'm probably jumping ahead of you again.
You may be, Randy. You're always at risk of that when you say something. Yeah. Um, Here's another good cartoon of the octopus grabbing the Chinese ship, and the person on board says "shark,"
I see. Yes.
and the shark has the word tariffs written across its back. So they have a number of issues to worry about, and we talked, I think, about this last week in terms of the inflationary impact of tariffs. I'm not worried about that because the octopus is a bigger force than
Yeah,
the risk of tariffs.
right, right.
Yeah. This was the cartoon I was looking for last week. It didn't exist yet, Randy.
I see. This is one you would have liked to have had. Yeah.
That's right. If I had the talent to draw these, this is what I would have drawn last week. All right. Well,
Well,
we'll stay
okay,
with,
so before you go on then, with regard to China, their numbers came out last week and they were showing 5% growth,
oh,
which was their stated goal for the year.
yes,
Now,
of course.
when you're in a planned economy, of course, you have a little bit more control over, getting to a number or not getting to a number. Whether or not the plan turned out to be products that anybody wanted to buy could be another issue. But their numbers were in line with their expectations. So if they're not made up, that would be good. However, compared to their historic last 30-year growth, it would be a dramatic slowdown in comparison.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I think there's good reason to believe that the number was in line with their target because that's what they were asked to do.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
That said, the Chinese are very smart, industrious people. There's a video from this week from a company called Deep Robotics. Their little robot dog here, Lynx, that has
Oh, yeah.
wheels.
Yeah.
And I'll just flip through a couple of images here. It's on a snow slope and it jumps over this little snowboard, no problem. Quite beautiful to watch, actually. Going through streams on one wheel at one point, dancing here on one wheel, spinning around, doing a front flip through on the water on rocks. Here's going through the stream on a couple wheels. Just the agility with this machine is pretty impressive.
That's a different company, though.
Yes, that's right. That's a U.S. company. Good catch. Yeah, not agility robotics, but it's the agileness of the robot.
Isn't Agile yet another company? Anyway.
Could be. Yeah. Anyway, I guess the question that a lot of folks have is, what's the purpose of this? Like, what can this be used for? Well, there's all kinds of applications. Um, maybe not one that's so economically important, but from a security standpoint, or if you wanted to move, and certainly in terms of military usage, you could see the use of this. Have an army of these very high speed robotic creatures could be very, very effective, very powerful.
Mhm.
Um, that it's impressive in terms of the development and how quickly things are progressing here.
Absolutely.
All right. Now, it does bring us to the question about training robots, and certainly simulation is going to play an important role. And this post here is talking about NVIDIA's Jim Fan saying we're training robots in a simulation that accelerates physics by 10,000 times. The robots undergo 1 year of intense training in a virtual dojo. Interesting choice of words. Could be using Tesla's dojo training cluster, but only take 50 minutes of wall clock time. So I think we're highly likely to be on the cusp of some breakthroughs in terms of training humanoid robots. I would expect to see that over time. I think that the necessity of sort of manually training robots will become less and less over time,
Mhm.
but still very important. And so to that point, this is a post from the Humanoid Hub talking about a training base that the Chinese have developed, established by the National Humanoid Robotic Innovation Center.
Mhm.
We don't have such a thing in the US.
No, no.
The training base is essentially a factory that produces data. It's a 50,000 square foot training hub that will launch over a dozen tasks involving 100 robots from more than 10 companies and institutions. The data gathered here will eventually be available to companies, made available to companies developing embodied AI models. So they, by 2027, they aim to have over 1,000 robots under training.
Yeah,
So
this
Chinese are taking this very seriously and are putting their money behind it.
this is what Scott and I had originally envisioned well, close to 2 years ago, when both of us were predicting that Tesla would have 1,000 bots themselves working in the factory in 2024. We kind of thought that those 1,000 bots would be, maybe they'd have one handler for every 5 bots or whatever, and they would be doing thousands of functions, learning the function, and then
Yeah.
going on to the next function. And of course, all of the bots would then have all that functionality through over-the-air updates. So this doesn't surprise me at all, but it appears that Tesla didn't take that direction at all. So I am looking so forward. I'm hoping there will be somebody who's chronicling, how exactly Tesla went step by step by step to get from, a robot that wouldn't know how to, push something across a table to a robot that is able to catch a ball, even if it was using a remote operator. There's a huge story there, and maybe only a few geeks will be interested, but I will be one of those geeks, so I sure hope they tell the story.
Yep. No, I'm with you on that. I think it'd be fascinating to learn some of the ins and outs of what they've been going through the last few years. Um, I suspect that it doesn't really make a whole lot of sense to scale up training until you've kind of more or less locked the design of the bot itself.
Awesome.
Otherwise you may have to sort of redo everything.
Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
Um, but who knows? I'm
Yeah.
not an expert in that field. This is kind of interesting. How is the robot going to open this? This is hard for many humans.
Is this a childproof cap?
Yeah, I mean, look at the lock here. Here it has popped up. You have to
Oh,
get your
yeah.
finger sort of under there and pull it up. Sometimes it requires quite a bit of force,
I see. Yeah, yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And Tom here has identified a whole bunch of these scenarios
Yes.
where it's quite hard actually for even a human to open these lids and caps. Um, it's not so easy. Um, I had a sort of a bottle of milk the other day in a plastic bottle. It was very hard to unscrew the top.
Yeah, yeah. So sometimes it's
Um,
a matter of strength. Sometimes it's a matter of dexterity. A lot of times it's really just a matter of reading the instructions.
yeah.
Like
Well,
push down and turn as opposed
sometimes that's not so easy. They say that, and yeah, maybe a bot will be able to apply the perfect force necessary for
to,
each one of these,
yeah,
and just know what that is.
yeah.
Or maybe the bot will just squeeze it until the milk comes out. That's another strategy. And then of course it'll just clean up its own mess,
Yes, of course.
right? All right. No good transition here, but here's a
Okay, all right.
cartoon.
So I'm gonna stop you again then because we've been doing a fairly interesting thing on X, or I've been doing something with the followers on X. I asked them whether they'd be willing to pay $1,000 a month for 3 years or $700 a month for 6 years in order to own an Optimus bot. 60% said yes. A lot of the commentary that has been coming through, because that would be a roughly $30,000 purchase, okay?
Yeah.
So a lot of the commentary that came through, though, was about the use cases, and virtually everybody, the use case always starts with house cleaning. It's always about house cleaning. And I'm like, there's so many other use cases, but that is the one that everybody thinks of. So I think once people really recognize what the list of use cases really is, the 30,000 is going to seem like a small number.
What are your top three use cases, Randy?
Well, of course, you know about my shoulder massage. That one I've been talking about since the book, since the Elon Musk mission. But I think a companion who you can. So right, I think about asking Siri something. It doesn't occur to me. I will still pick it up and use the calculator rather
Yeah.
than saying, Siri, if I multiply this by this, I still pick it up, use the calculator until I think, oh no, I could just ask Siri. But if I've got a bot, a humanoid sitting in the room with me, it's more natural to say, hey, you know, you know this, what's this plus this? Or to be watching a movie and say, oh, that's really interesting. I wonder what that actress did before this show, or what's that actress's name? And right now you'd be fumbling around with Google or whatever trying to find it, and the bot would be able to just say, oh, well, that actress was in this show, and I mean, I think the companionship thing would be another one. And then I don't have kids or animals right now, but if I had kids or animals, child and animal care would definitely be next.
Interesting how you lump the two together. But yeah, I guess they're not that dissimilar in many ways. I hear you.
And usually you have them at the same time. You have the
That's right.
animals and the children at the same time. Yes.
Yeah, we have both children and animals, and sometimes it's hard to tell the difference between the two. Yes. And I love them all dearly.
Yes, of course.
Yeah. Yeah, so will it become the Randy Kirk and Optimus show?
Maybe. Yeah.
Will you have a co-host?
There you go. I'm glad you suggested it. That sounds like a very good use of an Optimus. There you go.
Well, wouldn't it be? I mean, it could certainly fact check us all the way along.
100%. No, I mean, I think, Larry better watch out. I've got him on 2 nights a week. Maybe we have to have Optimus replace him on one night.
I think Optimus would be a great addition for the presidential debates when
There
they
you
do the
go.
fact checking.
Yes. Yes.
Because it could, physically, raise its hand and say, "No, sir, what you said is just wrong." Or, yeah. There's all kinds of uses, Randy. I think you're just scratching the surface there.
I know we're just barely getting there.
Yeah. All right. Well, the image here that people are probably sick of looking at by now is the Fed caught in its own web. Anyway, we'll leave that.
Okay.
Um, do you see a problem with this chart, Randy? This is a chart that shows 12-month government spending compared to 12-month tax revenue.
Revenues. Yeah. Yeah.
This only goes back about 10 years.
Okay.
The spending line is ahead of the tax revenue line. They've not crossed in this period of time.
Right. Right. By a
Spending
lot.
line of almost 7 trillion and the taxes of less than 5 trillion.
Yeah. Yeah. This would cause a deficit. I'm good. I'm good. I didn't have to ask Siri that one.
Is our deficits bad?
I guess. I mean, Japan is trying to prove that they don't matter if the country owns its own sovereign debt.
Yeah.
But I'm not sure it's working for them because
But
they
you-
were supposed to be the largest economy in the world now.
but you're just borrowing from future generations, and in Japan's case, what future generation?
Yeah, since they're not generating any.
Yeah.
Yeah, no. In general, I would say you could probably get at least 9 out of 10 economists to agree that deficits are bad.
Well, that's a pretty good ratio. Um,
Well, for economists, because there's famously, if you put 4 economists in a room and ask a question, you'll get 5 answers. So
right.
it's-
On the other hand, yeah. And then here's a chart of the 30-year fixed mortgage rate. We've all seen this went down to as low as 2.65%, and now we're back up in the 6-7% range.
did you get one of those? One of those 2.65s?
Yeah, I did.
Yeah, me too. I got 3.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, that's good, and that's certainly keeping a lot of people in place.
Right.
Um, this is also interesting. The median housing payment as a percent of median income
Mm,
has gone up a lot. And of course, no great surprise with, with where mortgage rates went and so on. But yet, this one's interesting. The percent of mortgage-free U.S. homeowners
mm.
basically appears to be probably, well, I don't know if it's a record high. This is only since 2010, but in recent years, a high of close to 40%.
Yeah.
This is as of 2023. I don't know what the 2024 data will show, but this is kind of an interesting counter trend.
Oh, yeah.
So only, the 60% of homeowners have a mortgage, 40% don't.
Yeah, and it might be interesting to kind of come up with another chart that would show of that 60%, where are people along the 30-year, for
Yeah.
most people, 30-year effort to pay it off.
That's right. And there's of course a bunch of people just going back to this chart that are locked in at these lower
Yeah.
rates.
Yeah.
What percent of the people are impacted here?
In fact, there's become kind of a conversation in various worlds where people say, I've got plenty of money in my stocks or my bonds or, in other assets. Should I pay off my 2.65 mortgage? My answer would be no, but that's
Right.
me.
Can't give financial advice, Randy.
I know.
Here's another interesting thing. I'm hearing through the grapevine that the number of buyers, home buyers, is starting to pick up,
Ah,
and potentially quite materially so as people realize that these mortgage rates aren't likely to go down.
I don't know who could,
So
I don't know who could
instead
have
of
predicted that.
instead of waiting around for the Fed to cut rates more, which seems less and less likely, they're saying, well, okay, I'm not going to wait anymore because I don't expect rates to go much lower. So it could be an interesting spring in the real estate markets.
Yeah, so I have written a couple of books, what do you call 'em? Ghost written a couple of books on real estate. I know a lot about the real estate market, and I've been predicting for, I don't know, a year and a half at least, that there's going to become a point at which people recognize that a 6.5% mortgage is normal.
Yeah.
The 3.5 is not. In fact, it's almost never happened before. So 6% is normal. 8% is, there's been lots of times where 8%, 9% has been true. So, but what's happened in the meantime, though, is because of the shortage of available housing and because people are locked into these mortgages, we have the pricing going up so much. And that's what your first chart was showing.
Yeah.
So there will be, I believe, a normal or maybe higher amount of people chasing properties, once the spring market picks up. We've already seen a little bit more in winter than we would normally see, especially on the new home side. But I think we will be, I think that there's going to be, I think there's a limit to what people can pay. And we might be getting very close to that. So we might not see these 6% per year increases. We might start seeing something closer to inflation in terms of the year over year increases.
Well, I was hoping to get this today. I feel like this guy at the end of this edge of this cliff that's walking up to you, Randy, and I say, "What's the one simple answer?" And your response is, "Do the work." Good news is this applies to lots of different things.
Everything. Yeah, right.
Yeah.
So much.
Well, that brings us to the end of the prepared
Oh,
remarks.
there wasn't a Cybertruck slide at the end. I don't
But
understand.
I front loaded it, Randy.
You did, but I mean, I'm just shocked and amazed. I thought I knew you well.
Well, if you need another one, here's
Oh,
one.
there you go. All right.
There's never one far away.
All right, listen, next Thursday will be the day after the earnings call. And I'm sure I've asked you this before. I don't know how much time or energy you put into predicting things like the margins that Elon will expose next week, whether you think it'll be better or worse than last quarter, or whether you think the overall uh, earnings per share will be up or down or hit the street's numbers. Do you do any of that kind of stuff?
I don't.
Okay, right.
I follow it all very closely. I
Yes,
care about it, but I don't try to predict it myself. There are many others that do a great job of that.
right,
Um, but I don't try to, I don't focus on quarterly earnings in terms of trying to predict what they are.
right,
But obviously follow it very closely and I give it a great deal of thought, but I'm not in the prediction game.
right. Gotcha. Okay.
Yep.
Well, you may have heard that I have, in fact, I know because we talked about in the green room that I've increased my year-end number to $1,200 from my earlier 700 plus, because I think the two pluses are now, the pluses were Robotaxi happens
Yep.
and the Optimus, we get a price and we get some kind of an idea of how many they're going to ship. So we still don't have a price, but we do now apparently have a good idea that we're looking at 600 a week by the end of the year, if the rumors are true. So that took away my plus on that one. I think Robotaxi is a fait accompli. I don't see any way that doesn't happen. So I'm just going to go ahead and make my year-end prediction 1,200. I know you think it's worth 3,000 now. So,
Well, my discounted cash flow
right,
analysis tells me that that's the case based on the assumptions that we've made.
right,
Um, and we've done that too with your assumptions, and
right.
we came to some similarly high numbers,
Yep, yep,
right? Should that be a price target? I'll leave that for others to decide.
right,
But certainly the opportunity is there. Um, you mentioned though that we don't know what the price of Optimus is going to be,
right.
but we do.
Oh, okay.
We know
Whatever,
exactly what it's going to be.
whatever the market will bear.
Well, exactly. It's what the market price is for the capability the Optimus has. It's the market price, right? Now the question is, what is that?
Yeah, yeah. Well, you've done the numbers. I've done the numbers. Larry's done the numbers separately from you and I. I think AJ, I'm not sure if AJ's done the numbers too. So many different people have done the
Yeah.
numbers. We've all come up with roughly the same thing.
Yeah.
And roughly we think the market would be around $70,000 a year, $70,000 a year as a rental,
As a
where
rental.
it still owns the physical product. 200,000 minimum as a purchase.
Yeah.
Those seem to be kind of everybody's number. And that the people that have done this kind of analysis have, I think, also all come to the conclusion that it shouldn't be sold for the first couple of years. It should only
Right.
be.
And,
So
and by the way, the reason that we came to those numbers, it's pretty obvious, but let me just state it,
absolutely.
is if I have a factory and I need to hire some workers, I'm short some workers right now, I've got unfilled positions, then I simply take the cost of how much I'm willing to pay per hour to fill those positions, right? Add in the other benefits and what the total cost per hour is, factor in the number of shifts, and I get the number that I'm willing to pay per year
Mhm.
for that work.
Right.
Okay. Let's just say it's $100,000.
Mhm.
If I can get a robot in to do that for 70, 80, or 90, I'm pretty happy.
Right.
And in some cases, you may even be willing to pay exactly what you're willing to pay a human worker.
Right.
And in some cases, even more, depending on how desperate you are. But your hourly rate is kind of setting how desperate you are for the labor,
Right.
right? If you're willing to pay more, then you need that labor, and you're going to pay for that. So that's really how we're arriving at that. It's this concept of what's the next best alternative.
Right.
If I can't get a human worker, and my next best alternative is a robot, then I'm going to pay for that.
Now you can
And
yeah, go ahead.
and up until now, we haven't had that next best alternative. It didn't exist, and it's about to very soon.
And it could be the opposite. It could be I need another worker. I would prefer to hire a robot. Or it could be I'm going to hire a robot and get rid of a worker. I mean, we have
Maybe.
all those possibilities. And that, by the way, that 70,000 a year is really based on one shift, replacing one shift. And that doesn't take into consideration the long list that you and I have drawn up. And I think our
Yeah.
lists are getting longer of the kind of less tangible costs of a worker, things like the hiring cost, the firing cost, the high productivity of a robot compared to the disparate productivity of any group of workers is going to be in a bell curve. All those things would be added in. Um, the next thing would happen is if the rent is 70,000, or if Tesla decides to sell them for 100,000 or 200,000, the next thing we'll do is we'll find, I think because of the massive demand, we would find out how close we were to the market price because you'd have arbitrage taking place.
Yes.
People would be, you know, even if I'm a factory owner,
Yep.
and I buy one for 100,000, and the factory next door comes over and says, "Look, I do 4 shifts. I'm willing to give you 400,000 for that same bot."
Yeah.
You'd be inclined to possibly turn it over to him.
And by the way, the same arbitrage will happen with robotaxis.
Yes, yes.
So we hear from a lot of Tesla owners that, oh, I have no interest in putting my car in the robotaxi network,
Right.
right? But what happens if somebody comes knocking on your door and says, I will pay you 3 times what you think your car is worth?
Right.
Has
Yeah,
your interest level just changed?
yeah.
I think so.
We already get those phone calls about our homes, right?
Well,
Are you getting ready to sell your home? You know?
yeah, yeah. This is on a different scale for different reasons, but yeah,
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 yeah. But I mean, there's people out there looking for that opportunity to make money on
right.
whatever. In that case, it's just the difference between the realtor's aggressiveness in
Yeah.
terms of finding available properties compared to some other realtors' aggressiveness.
And just because you think that the asset that you own serves a purpose, it doesn't mean that there are not others out there that think the asset can serve a very different purpose
Right.
and therefore make that asset more valuable. Right. And that's what's going to happen with people's vehicles. And I've modeled some of that out in terms of what a used Tesla could be worth given certain scenarios.
Yeah.
And I think some people might be surprised at how much their used Tesla is worth in a robotaxi world.
Yeah. And then the fun question, because we've been doing this for a while now, in terms of, when will people sell their Tesla? If somebody is knocking on your door,
Yeah.
is it $10,000 over what you think it's worth? Is it 20? What's the number where you're willing to sell? Then you're faced with the question, what do I replace it with? And if you can't replace it with another Tesla because those are now worth the
Right.
same. And so what are you going to drive now? Are you going to drive a Polestar?
Well, you might be better off just taking robotaxi as a service, just
There you go. There
paying
you
for the
go.
use. Yeah, enjoying that extra cash.
It is going to be this is going to be a social experiment. Both of these things are going to,
Yeah.
and AI too. I mean, all of these 3 big coming huge changes, the agency aspect, the use of agents to do actual work, if you will,
Right.
like making phone calls for you, or pulling together data that you need on a daily basis to do your job. These agents are going to also create a huge social experiment in terms of how we adapt to all of this, and what do we end up with. I can think of other uses for my garage.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. No, absolutely. That'll be a growth industry to repurpose that garage into something else.
Probably it would be a perfect solution for the virtual reality headsets because you need a large room
Yeah.
without obstructions. And most people don't have that large room that they can set aside for the virtual reality headset. So this could be
Well,
the
I
perfect
think it might be your Optimus training room.
your Optimus training.
Yeah. The one thing that's bothered me and I'm wondering about is, you see these videos of, I guess they're CGI where people are walking through the shopping mall and their Optimus or whatever other robot is carrying their bags.
Yes, right.
I don't know that I really want to go to a mall and be having to walk, around, not only 5,000 people, but 5,000 robots at the same time. Now, the robots, I'm sure will walk around me. Like I won't have to, physically avoid them. I'm sure that they won't be jerks and just keep walking forward. But that's going to be kind of a miserable experience to the extent that we have that kind of world,
Yeah.
right? Or are we going to have robot-free malls, robot-free grocery stores? Um,
Or will it be human-free balls?
well,
Human-free
that's
grocery stores.
yeah, maybe that's where it goes.
I mean, I'm already that robot. My wife has some back problems right now, so I've been doing the grocery shopping. When I go to the grocery store, I have to get out my phone and point it at the items on the shelf and go, now, is that the one you meant?
Yeah,
Well, the robot could be doing exactly the same thing.
it could be. And maybe once the robots move more human-like, maybe it won't seem so weird.
Yeah.
And then that'll be weird in a different way because then you'll be wondering what's a robot and what's human.
And then, they're not going to be walking around in sheet metal. They're going to be walking around with clothes on and wigs, and they'll have human-like faces at some point. And, I mean, some of the Japanese ones already do. So it's not going to be that weird because they're just going to look like humans.
Yeah, interesting.
What a world we're about to enter into.
You know how they say that pets look like their owners? Are we going to say that about the humanoids? It-
Will they take on our personalities and our
will there be a Randy Kirk robot that looks and acts like you? I guess there could
will
be.
that be what some people want?
Yes.
I want a
My guess is your wife has enough with the single Randy Kirk she has that a robot behaving like you might be too much for her.
What are you even talking about? I don't know I know what you're saying, sir.
No, you don't need to go there, Randy. I'm just saying that a robot that talks like you, having you and that robot in the house,
Talking to
that
each other.
talking to each other, yes, that would, yeah. I think we need to have your wife on the show to see what her feelings are about this. Um, yeah, there's going to be all kinds of challenges that we as humanity will have to face in integrating these into our lives.
Yeah, yeah.
I think integrating it into our own homes will be much easier than the integration out in public.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Because if it's my robot, then I care about my robot.
Right.
But if it's your robot, I'm just going to kick it to the street, so to speak.
Unless you know that that robot has jujitsu capabilities.
Well, yes, then I'll be very careful. Right. And if it's a Chinese robot, then most definitely it'll be highly skilled in those martial arts.
An Israeli,
That,
Krav Maga is really the right one.
yes.
It's really the best. All right, you know what? I think we've taken up as much time as we can. Cern, looking forward to the first time when I have Optimus on our program together. This will be a lot of fun. Maybe we can borrow one for just that purpose before they even are widely available. As always, pleasure to have you on board and to have a few giggles together.
Thanks, Randy.
Bye for now, and great talking to all of you.